Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to this week's episode of Perception Paradox. Today we are joined by Ada Mockutė Jaime, Chief Marketing Officer at Nordcurrent, the largest Baltic video game development and publishing studio, behind hits like Cooking Fever and Airplane Chefs. Ada's career journey is anything but conventional. She transitioned from marketing roles in finance, tech, and consumer brands to leading game industry innovation. Her expertise shines through in-her data-driven strategies and player-centric marketing approach, which have been instrumental in expanding Nordcurrent's global reach, particularly in Asia, North America, and Europe. In our conversation, you will hear how she leverages user-generated and community-driven marketing to cultivate deeper player engagement, enhances brand identity and storytelling in a competitive gaming landscape, balances AI and human insight to drive growth while preserving authenticity, and takes bold strides in cultural initiatives such as co-producing Lithuanian's first dedicated video game where you are cooking the cold beetroot soup. Join us for a dynamic session exploring how adaptability, creativity, and courage propel leadership in game marketing and beyond. So let's dive in. Real people, real stories, and real challenges that break the status quo. I'm your host, Zivile, and welcome to Perception Paradox.
Actually, yes. A lot of things like the know-how can be transferred in different approaches, and especially since I joined gaming, many things are just questioned like, why is it done this way? Of course, it's hard to break the stigma and people are not thinking outside the box. But I think you can definitely transfer some skills, some knowledge, and you have always a fresh approach, because that happens when you work in the same thing. And for people who do, I applaud you. But if you work in the same industry a lot, sometimes you stop to innovate, and then giving some fresh approaches actually is very useful.
Okay, so today I would like to talk with you about several topics. So one of them, what I'm very curious to learn from you about your approach towards leadership, and especially leadership nowadays when we have such a gap between generations and technology usage, and also this changing landscape of I still hope that more diverse and inclusive environments we're aiming to get closer to. And absolutely, I want to talk to you about marketing and gaming, because gaming it's such an industry full of stigmas. And only in the recent years, I've got myself a chance to dig a bit deeper within the industry and realizing how many women are actually gamers and how much money is in the industry, and it's a growing field. I think that would be really interesting to hear from your experience working with the Nordcurrent lately.
Yeah, so I've been in gaming will be soon a year. And when I joined, I had the same approach of like, okay, so it's for kids, you know, kids gaming, especially because it's a mainly mobile gaming company. So I imagine those Tetris games or whatever not. And then other side is the hardcore gaming. So PC and consoles, but it's, you imagine the guy with the big headphones and 17 screens. That is more true though than nothing. Overall, the industry of mobile gaming only is worth more than music and movies industry put together. So I like the fact it's kind of the underdog that nobody really talks about, but then there's so much money in it, and it's so big and so competitive because of that. Now, if you look at the mobile gaming, depending, of course, on the genre and stuff, but casual mobile gamers are mostly women of the age 25, 32, 37, quite high paying, good education, which is so far away from the stigma of children playing. Of course, there's games for children. We don't personally target that at all because it's a very sensitive topic, because you need to regulate a lot and advertising is very difficult. And also, we are a profit-run business and children are not to be profited off. That's our kind of a tendency. So we keep the kids away. Of course, naturally, there's some playing. But our main customer is middle-aged or average-aged women in the working class.
You're focused on the casual gamers, basically,
Absolutely.
not the ones who are going.
We have a department in our company. It's Nordcurrent Labs, and they're working with the hardcore games. And we just released an amazing game and stuff, but it's a separate thing because the marketing is also very, very different, and people are they have very high requirements. They look into graphics, they look into everything. It's very, very sensitive marketing. Casual gaming marketing is much more like, I would even compare it a lot to e-commerce a little bit. So it's kind of direct to consumer marketing in a way.
So how much do I need to engage in the games when it comes to become a casual gamer?
From the moment you install. Yeah. For me, what I find difficult since I joined, again, from other industries, is actually it's much more difficult of the funnel for marketing, because normally you can measure top of the funnel, seeing where the organic comes. Here you have the app, which shows some, but you cannot divide and fragment and see where they're coming from. And install does not mean success. Mm-hmm. You're like, oh, we have a lot of installs. Yeah, it doesn't matter, because we measure a cohort for 7 days, for 28 days, so the LTV is very long. So it's a very fractured thing, and the victory is very further on. So you're like, oh, we have like 100 million installs, and you might be non-profitable.
Yeah, and the retention can drop as well, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So then the questions from the marketing perspective and also a product development, how do you keep people using your product in such a saturated world?
Well, I cannot tell you all the secrets. Well, we are trading. The thing that is most difficult to trade now is people's attention. So it's all about keeping them very interested. So, for example, Cooking Fever, it's one of our main games, and it was a fascinating thing, and it's a little ad break. So I was recently in Argentina visiting some of the family, and we went into the mountains and met like some of the further family members who are proper gauchos, like people on the horses, still in the mountains, working with the animals. And they're like, what do you work? And I'm like, I work in gaming. They're like, oh, what games? And I show them the game. And he's like, I play this. And he shows me the game of Cooking Fever.
No way.
And I'm like, I'm in the middle of mountains in Argentina and you're playing this game. So the game is 10 years old. Like pretty much everyone seen an ad or knows, in the furthest corners. But to keep it interesting, we have like 47 locations. Every location has 50 levels. We have different meta spaces, from the cooking into gardening. You have daily ops, you have tournaments. You have to create so much content that people have no way to get bored, because they get bored very, very fast. It used to be that we used to play 1-2 mobile games. Now people can play 7-8. Wow. And they choose, because we, the evil of the social media, which I am sadly also addicted to, is, our dopamine is spinning so fast, our attention span is decreasing, and fighting for the attention is very difficult. So you just need to keep them very engaged, very interested, and also this competitive side needs to be triggered.
How important for you to keep your players engaged, the community aspect?
Extremely, because one of the main things that probably every business understands, that user acquisition is becoming more and more expensive, and that's a cost you cannot control. One of the big channels comes and says, well, now the CPI is €3. And you're like, oh, nothing to do about it. So what we do is that the shared opinion and the content created by our community is the key. And that's what happens. And for example, another very successful game, we have Airplane Chefs, which is like #1 in iPad in China and tops in Indonesia and tops. So even for our user acquisition strategy, we had people organically creating content while playing the game so ridiculously fast, because it's ridiculous, which naturally attracted about 10-15 million views. We started using that in our user acquisition, and now those videos have 800 million views. And what happens because of that person, other people starting to play, and they reach out to us like, we want to create content, we want to play live, and so on. So we have a whole department of people, a whole department, 4 people, but it's a whole department, working with community management. It's in a way another important loop to engage people in the game, and when they're not playing, to be in other channels. Like if they're scrolling on social media, Instagram or TikTok, there's content, there's competitions, there's things that they kind of reminded to get resources, to get a loop, to share, to be engaged in the brand, not only while using the brand. So yes,
we are kind of wild.
Yes, we are very cool.
Like that?
So, no, it is. Because it's casual gaming, traditional channels like Discord and Reddit are not for that, because in those channels, people are discussing strategy and details. So as I said, it's very direct to consumers. So we have meta platforms, Instagram, Facebook. Twitter, X a little bit, but not so much, and TikTok. TikTok is very big for us, and that's something we developed in last year. And at one point, we're like one of the companies doing most campaigns in TikTok because, again, up and down, but it's where the people are using and, creating a lot of content. And especially live streams are working super well for us. And again, because casual gaming is not hardcore gaming, so hardcore gamers are streaming on Twitch, where, and our gamers are streaming on TikTok and YouTube, actually. There's a lot of creators on YouTube.
Pretty fun. And what about the audience gap? Because for me, when we talk about TikTok, it's still more like a younger generation that is nailing it. But
I want to read the red button of,
Okay.
No, actually, same thing. It's like, one thing is like, same with, for example, Snapchat. In my head, it's also kids and filters, and stuff. Snapchat for us as a channel doesn't work, but if you look at the audience research, it's older people who started, not 15. I mean, maturer, that started using at the beginning, and they just had the habit of that. Same is happening with TikTok. It's actually average user is like about 30 years old. And it's expanding more and more. Facebook, again, for in my head, that's already kind of my grandmother uses Facebook. But for some games, we see that works very well, depending on a content and community. So TikTok is not only young users, it's actually a lot of female audience, same thing, because it's growing because of the content that is like lifestyle, cooking, health, and so on, which is bringing an older audience. Because you went from the stage of mini dances, when it started of dancing everywhere, and now it's going more into the certainly qualitative content more than anything.
When you talk to your communities, what is important for them more? Is it the game? Is it the brand? Is it some kind of challenge or way to relax? Have you managed to dig into more the experiences we're looking for when it comes to casual gaming?
Well, if you want to like truth, raw honesty, they're just complaining that everything's too expensive and they want more gems and fuel, and that's a standard. It's like, more gems, give me more gems. I'm stuck, I cannot play. So that's number one thing.
Okay.
There's a lot of loving messages and we get a lot of feedback. And when we develop the game, we also ask people like, what do you want to see more? What kind of like topics, restaurants, or whatever not. It's a mixed thing. I think brand depend, especially for older games like Cooking Fever, it's very important. And we use some social media listening tools, and we see people are talking about nostalgia a lot. So we started using that in our ads, which works very well. For others, it's about competition, how others performing, how many levels did you finish. So it's kind of even in social media, we try to do mini games of competition so people can show off. Because our games are a lot about the vanity of being the fastest, the coolest, the strongest, and so on.
You also did a cool campaign with the cold beetroot soup, which went really viral.
Yes. So, and actually, just last week, we got a letter that's been shortlisted for European Digital Communication Awards out of Yes, out of 200 applicants, we're in top 3, so we're very excited. So we have Cooking Fever, as I mentioned, and there's definitely like a ton of restaurants, seafood, whatever, American, all kinds of. We never had Lithuanian one because it's such a niche thing. And then, so how the idea was brought that our team was like, hey, it's been 10 years, it's time we pay homage to our own country and we do a Lithuanian restaurant. And they created a very nice Lithuanian restaurant. And then we were like, wait a minute, Šaltibarščiai Fest is happening. And it's a very kind of a different meal. And it's very beautiful. And also it was the main meal in the game because though traditionally it's more cepelinai.
Yeah.
They don't look good in gaming. This big gray bowls don't look good in digital. It's not very digitally appealing meal. So the pink soup was the main thing. And then we reached out to Vilnius Go and we said, hey, we're willing to do this because, there's 5 to 8 million monthly players, and I can give you like a hat that 90% of them don't know Lithuania or don't know pink soup. And it's the best way to export culture. And they were very excited, and we changed all the restaurant to be very Šaltibarščiai based and Lithuanian based. And we did on-site events with a lot of social media educational content, which was perceived very well. The numbers were booming, and people are like, oh, what is the soup? What is this country? And you can see that they're interested in asking. So we kind of, in the way we managed to pay the homage, as we're saying, love letter to our city for a soup that is digitalized. So, but it was perceived very well.
That is so cool. I can see Lithuania, it's really riding the wave both of the cold beetroot soup And also in general of picking up the trends, right? With the streamer who is very controversial, and he has just visited Lithuania, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, there was a lot of views and interest from different generations. And I'm like, wow, interesting.
I think, it's like if you want to be heard, you have to try to talk in the terms that people are interested. It's like, so I think overall, it's my beef with the industry of gaming is that or marketing per se, that I think gaming is such a medium that's not being used for advertising in a way or communicating.
Yeah.
Because, on social media and that, it's all skippable. You go 5 seconds. Our average session is 7 minutes of intimate time with the screen. So it's a perfect place to, I don't know, because we had some brand partnerships in the past. Coca-Cola, Football Club Barcelona. The usage always increased for people, the engagement increased. And I think there's so much opportunity that other companies can work with games because you have very kind of a intimate and very kind of a concentrated time of stream where people are exposed to your product. So I think for brand campaigns, it's a perfect medium that people are forgetting about.
Do you still
please reach out.
Do you still collaborate a lot with the different branding?
We are very much open to that. Yeah, the problem we're facing is that normally what happens is you are sat down with the people who work with licensing. And when we go and we don't want to just put a brand, just kind of slap it on because it has no effect nor for you, not for us. What we want to do is create gameplay that is fully yours. And it's hard for them to conceive because they're more used to this is my brand, you put a t-shirt, we split the revenue. Yeah. And that's not exactly how it works. So we are very open and we're talking to a couple of things. We're talking to airlines, we're talking to food products, we're talking to restaurants, and very open. And there's so many opportunities to connect both online and offline, where we can, promote codes in the game when you reach certain level and so on. So basically we're very open if anyone wants to.
Okay, I hear you. I think it's pretty fun. I saw quite some good also in the fashion industry examples when they were collaborating with games. Yeah.
We have a game called Storyteller. We just finished a collaboration with Puma. So they had all digitalized fashion kind of a campaign, like a line of clothes, all for Puma. So people love it. And then it is a question for example, the Puma, would they go and, buy sweatpants because of that? Probably not, but especially with the kind of a more emotional trigger things like food. You cook in the game and you're like, maybe I do want that burger or whatever from a restaurant.
This is great. You've been now in the gaming industry for a year. You've been working a lot with communities. I can see that you are also bringing up the cultural heritage. And right now you're strongly, guys, positioning also that Lithuania as a country of knowledge and also gaming experts, etc. What was the most surprising thing during the last year for you working with different campaigns, different games, people? Was there anything that actually clicked to you? Wow, there is a huge potential. I can see, I want to continue.
For me, it's the vast amount of people playing and the time they spend per game and the money people spend in gaming. Not on those more casual games, but in the others, you have big whales which spend thousands of euros in the game, which for me was shocking. From this is a game, and how gaming is becoming such an integral part of people's life. Kind of a additional medium, and how communities are built. So, as I mentioned, the Storyteller game, the communities there are so strong. They kind of create separate groups. They create separate kind of clans even. Where on Facebook they have closed communities and they're like, you don't vote for that, you don't vote for that. And it becomes kind of a separate life for people to relax and skip away from everyday life. And for me, again, is the stigma of imagining, okay, casual mobile games, who's playing? And then you see the actual, university professors, big businessmen sitting there playing those casual games. And this is my way to relax. This is kind of a little escapism for me. So, yeah.
That's beautiful. And well, we cannot hide that we live in the very fast technological growth right now.
Indeed.
And the way we create things, including games, are changing. We can accelerate way faster. So where do you see right now your product teams and the company going further within the industry when something that would used to take 1 week to develop, you can do that in 1 day? And expectations from the consumers also has increased.
Yes and no, in a way, because you see a lot of, for example, games popping up. The problem or the issue with that is that user acquisition is very expensive, which means you are investing a lot to keep the retention. The games created by AI, they don't have retention because you cannot fully create a very good long-term game with AI. You just can't. In our company, we don't use AI for game creating. Maybe some minimal aspects of some kind of a conceptual art that can be then included by artists. But AI is not at the level where you can just feed a fully functioning good game and it will be like done. So for us, I wouldn't say it sped up the process as much. There's still a lot of linear activities, and still mobile games in our company take a year or two to create. And because there's so many specialists involved, from artists to programmers, and then you have all the QA and localization because you have 150 countries and languages. And so I wouldn't say it affected the game development as such too much. When it comes to marketing, it definitely is helping us with efficiency for sure. We can experiment much more. We can experiment much more with the creative part as well. So what we started doing, that we don't do too much AI created concepts for ads or for social media, but what we do is we test the concept created with AI, and then if it has traction, we create an actual good one. Because we saw a lot, all the big kind of a wave started, we tried a couple of things with AI. Our community did not like it. There was such a pushback. They're like, oh no, AI, no, I don't like it. I think people are though the AI is getting much better and sometimes it's difficult to say, like we laughing, I feel I have a trained eye, but lately I've been exposed to like one or two videos. I was like, no,
Yeah.
So it's rarely, but it happens. But I think people are picking up. And as you said, the amount of content is ridiculous. And then when you can see that so much is generated by AI, you start to seek some kind of authenticity and more connecting to the gamer and to the user. So while it sped up the process, I still have this cliche line I used to say that I don't think AI will change people. It will change people who don't know how to use AI and definitely can work on some simple things, some copywriting, some, optimization, some parts of creative. But then even if we do some videos with AI, we have a motion designer to connect everything together and make it pretty. So it's not that you can just go. Or I think maybe you can, but the long term, and if you look at the retention, it's not there yet.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for sharing. And you mentioned that, a lot of things you create still in this tested processes. The company has been running for 20 years?
23.
Right? 23 years.
Yeah.
It's quite a big milestone, taking into consideration how competitive landscape it is in the gaming industry. And we keep hearing that big companies shut down or they burn out or just they go out of order because they're not relevant anymore. What do you think keeps the Nordcurrent going so strong and it feels in such a sustainable way?
So one thing that I always also mention, it's a family business. So it's privately funded. There's two brothers and a wife and one brother, and they're running the company from the beginning, which I think puts a lot of personal passion. And second thing, they're extremely versatile and adjustive. So they started in one thing, then they were creating games for other companies. Then they went into PC gaming. So whatever the trend is changing, they're really reactive and they try to adjust, even going, for platforms, for topics, for partnerships. And I think that's why they're afloat and doing well for so many years. Because they don't go into this is my line and I'm going to do it and that's it. Also, we are strongly data driven. So there's not a lot of let's do it because it's fun, but every euro has a sense. And what's fascinating for me as well is that I think the company culture, in a sense, because we have a lot of people working in the company for 18 years, 15 years. Yeah, it's 7 years working in a company is not impressive. It's you're a newbie. I am a baby here. No, it's you haven't proven yourself to be here long. Which I think it doesn't come without the right motivation and space for people to grow. And we have stories where people are coming into the entry position of a community specialist, and they are head of, publishing in departments. So I think it's approach towards people. It's the right values. It's the flexibility, adjustability, and what I feel personally coming from, again, different services and bosses and environments, they give you the space to experiment, and they validate your work, which I think is very, very important as well.
Sounds like a healthy and very inclusive culture to work.
Yes, I should go like Nordcurrent/jobs, apply now.
Yeah, we can.
Apply.
No, what I keep hearing, because we're so exposed to a very fast scale, and at some point it felt that we had the COVID era with the remote only work and everyone trying to figure out things out, and now we have this very hardcore back to office temper coming back. And what I've experience on the global level, people are talking and questioning, are we back to this never-ending hustle culture where again we put work and the power in the employer hand rather than employees, which is, I'm still did not dig too much into that, but people in the network are talking, and I'm like very fascinated to hear
at least we're not, I just returned Monday from China, from a big event and conference, and Chinese people, and not people now, but companies are very proud about 669. 6 days a week, 6 to 9.
Wow.
696, sorry, from 9 to 6. So like ridiculous amount of work and stuff. And I think here it's like, don't get me wrong, everyone's working intensely, but in gaming overall, for me, another shocking thing is that people are creating a game for a year or two. You soft launch for 4 months and it can flop immediately. And that's it. And your baby's gone, and you start again, and you start again, and you start again. Like, I couldn't be a game developer. I'd be probably crying with a bottle of wine for a month, like, my game flopped.
You have to be very resilient.
Yeah.
So how do you cope with the mental health and of the people who are contributing to the game? And let's say if it doesn't work out after putting so much work.
I think it's just understandable that this is the way it is.
It works.
Yeah, it is. And you still see, and you get to see your creations come live, just sometimes not successful. A lot of it cannot be measured because it takes a long time to create the game. So something that's trendy right now, you don't jump on it because in a year or so it might not be. And it is a bit of a lottery. And sometimes we launch a game and like, I think this is going to be for that audience. A totally different audience pops up. And you're like, oh, well, okay. You like it, let's talk to you. Yeah. So, again, I couldn't do that. For me, I put too much probably personal love into things, and it's hard when it fails. I think the way I heard our like heads of development and people working with the games is like, they put it as a learning process and the things that you learned. And like, which is interesting, we had another game which was like, average success on PC. And I'm like, well, they didn't do too well. And the head of them, they said, but it was a wonderful learning process. We're going to go on to another project. We know what we learned. This was a practice round. Let's go. And for me, it's fascinating because I also come from an environment where failing is not very much allowed. You have to perform. If not, heads fall. Yeah. Not here.
Nice. And how many people usually work for one game?
Depending on the game. When a starting basis could be, a small team of 4 or 5. On the bigger ones, it could be 20 or more. So depending, if it's already running, successful, it really, really depends.
All right. I would like to touch base a bit also on your career and leadership, because what struck me that you're a person who is very brave. You're very courageous to try things, even maybe in different industries, different areas. Where do you think that courage to do things is coming from?
Oh, childhood trauma. No, I'm kidding.
I was like, getting there, all right.
So when I was little, no, I'm kidding. No, I think, I am as a personality very adventurous, and I did a lot of things. Yeah. Now I have my own children, and then I think if my children would do what I did to my parents, I would be dead by 40, but out of stress. I think I just find everything quite interesting, and I like to be curious, and I don't like to get bored. For me, that's a difficult thing. It's like I probably would be the worst accountant in the world. Not that the job is boring, but it's very kind of repetitive in a way, and I need to explore. I need to learn new things. That fascinates me, and I think that what drives me and makes me kind of go forward. Also, God gave me a gift of learning quite fast, not soon. So going for different industries, a lot of things are the same. And people, when they, of course, if I would go making lasers, I'd be like, I know what I'm doing. But because you have the same kind of a know-how of marketing and you understand the goals. And I had a good guess in my life to educate myself about finance and these things, which, you see the bigger picture, understand what needs to be done, where to track. And I think it's the fact that I just try to always combine creativity with numbers. That's the thing that in user acquisition, digital marketing is not a problem, but in overall marketing, people a lot of times don't combine these things. because we know marketing is always like, I don't know what they're doing, whatever, spending money for nice things. So when I combine these things, because there is that fear, you go sometimes, you're doing things, you don't know if it's going to work. So I try to have numbers behind to be like, my insurance, it worked.
Yeah.
Which also kind of makes you braver, knowing that it works.
Validation as well, and just having the proof.
Yeah, at least some.
Yeah, and what is your relationship with imposter syndrome? Well, we're coming from Lithuania.
Oh,
we're
best friends.
best
friends, yes.
How do you cope with it?
My husband has to, not me. I don't know if I can do it. Yes, you can. No, but if I... no, it is obviously, you question yourself, and as you said, things are changing so fast. You always need to be on top. But to be honest, I always have this test in my head. I'm like, what's the worst thing that will happen? What is the worst thing that can happen? Like I'm not going to bankrupt the company myself. I'm not that talented. I'm not, a pure idiot to totally ruin something. So the worst thing is like, the vibes are not going to match. The goals are not going to match. I will be let go or something. And then what? Nothing. And then you can step up again. So a lot of things in my life, I just ask, okay, what's the absolute worst that can happen? And if you talk it out to yourself, a lot of times it's not that scary.
You've been in different positions, and including leadership positions, and you saw the industry of you saw companies being transformed, and it's totally different, of course, what was happening 20 years ago, what's happening right now in organizations. So what are your core leadership values when it comes to your work ethics?
Well, 20 years ago, I was 16, not a great leader yet. True. Yes, I was all in the youth organization and stuff. For me, I think it's, I have this bad joke, but it's also true. I like to hire people that are smarter than me, so I have to work less. Which is true. It's, I think it's about enabling people and giving the space, which is sometimes hard because especially in this managerial between role where, between the stakeholders on top and then your team, and marketing is always related to everybody. You have to be this kind of a between many rocks. But I take pride in my people and letting them work and trying to see the best in them. A lot of times, what I notice is that people are not in their position they should be. So, of course, it's easy. Like my biggest team was 50 people, but I had mid-managers, so they helped me out. But it's about creating the space that everybody can work, and sometimes not everybody can work, and you have to let go people of attitudes and so on. But I think, at work, we spend more time than we spend at home, sadly or happily. Yeah. So having a healthy environment where you're not scared to come, where you're allowed to make mistakes and learn things. I sound very corporate, like, what are the opportunities of growth? But that's what it is, like this has happened. What could have done better? Let's do it next time. And so for me, leadership is a lot about people and enabling them and creating an environment that can work.
Okay, wonderful. I think we covered quite a lot. We're getting closer to the end, and I would like to wrap it up with this whole gaming industry. You are right now part of it, and which I find to be very fascinating, especially if we go outside Europe and we look into the Middle East, like all the budgets that are being thrown into the industry and the younger generations, and including African region. It's wild and so much potential and opportunities for gaming. We already touched base one of the futuristic looks, what are opportunities for companies, that it's brand partnerships, right? What are other big things you are foreseeing that's going to be happening in this mainstream gaming industry?
Well, for us as a gaming or for other companies too?
For company, for gaming, maybe what you have your eyes on right now.
So for us, what's happening is that the competition is kind of increasing for sure because of those kind of small. So for us, it's now like a field of minds. So the user acquisition is getting more expensive, which means you need to think about engaging the communities, creating ambassadors more than ever. The competition is fierce. You need to be very much update with keeping people engaged and interested. So again, it's a lot of creativity and quick development. Overall, marketing is very, very fast, especially if you look at, for example, Asia and eastern part of the world. The speed there is ridiculous. People get bored if you don't keep them on the jiggles and everything in like every single possible moment. But overall, I think gaming is becoming so integrated into everyday usage of devices. So we don't have this yet in the West, but in China, mini games, which are like mobile games, but they're integrated in their WeChat, for example. It's like a So if you would have a game on WhatsApp, people are just playing without even understanding they're playing. Just like, oh, small play, let's go next thing. So it's becoming so kind of interluded into everyday usage of the phones that more and more people are doing that. With that comes a lot of risks. And that's a big topic for us, you know, the security of the people, especially if the games are with younger teenagers and so on, the quality of the content, the conversations with the sensitive topics. So there's a lot of parts we need to manage. Overall, for other companies, there's a topic of gamification that always comes up. Everyone's like, oh, we should gamify things and so on.
Yeah.
And I'm the bad policeman. I'm saying that don't do it just to do it. Because a lot of people, I'm like, if you're a service, because there's services that should not be gamified. It should be just service in the background that runs smoothly. And I think just putting it on everywhere is not necessary. Because people in-game, they want to be entertained. You don't want to be entertained while paying your electrical bill. Like, oh, I paid it 10 times. Yay! I got a carrot or whatever. So, you know, you just want to do it, forget about it, and that's it. So I think, you know, keep entertainment to entertainment and services or whatever to another thing. I do think there's a huge potential for educational content. I think that's the gaming is the medium where, especially for younger generations, that's how they communicate. That's how we build communities with themselves. Like if I had this attitude like, oh, people are just gaming, they're not socializing, they don't know. They socialize, but they socialize differently. You know, there's huge communities, there's people, they know how to talk and so on. And I think to deliver some of the educational content and some messages, gaming can be a wonderful medium to do that. And there's big games like Roblox, which does it, and many other platforms. So something that should be considered as well. And why I'm talking about integrating the games that already have users, because to attract somebody to try now, it's becoming harder and harder and harder. So using the platforms that are developed and you know their audience and something can be a very good, easier way to integrate.
Wonderful. So I have this tradition on the podcast to leave listeners with a question and thought to ponder through the day. Today we spoke a lot about the gaming industry as such, about your braveness to jump between different industries and apply your knowledge, and a bit of leadership. So what would be your thought to ponder for the audience who is listening for us, mainly entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs wannabe who are tackling daily challenges in this roller coaster?
Well, no, I was just like philosophically thinking today because I was talking to my neighbor. She's like, what do you do? And you kind of say I work in gaming, but then I thought that actually in all my recent work experiences, I am trading people's attention. I'm just fighting for people's attention, you know, selling and trading. So I think it's a good way to think about what you do, not without the end sale, but what are we actually selling and what are we actually trying to buy as people inside of organization.
Well, thank you. I think I couldn't finish it better. Thank you for being here today at Perception Paradox.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a blast, and sorry I babble so much.
Thank you, everyone, and see you next week. I will put all the links in the show notes, and
Thank you so
have
much.
a good day.
Good?
No, good.